Yes. Good morning, students. Welcome back again after your first term examination. Now we are going to start with the second term, and the chapter number 7 we have already done. I have already made you done. Now we will start with the second chapter, that is Akbar the Great. And in this chapter we are going to study about the Akbar, its foreign policies, then his congest administration, revenue systems, Mansabdari system, religious policies, his relations with the Rajputs, cultural achievements, etc. So, starting with the chapter Akbar. So, Humayun's son, Humayun's son Jalaluddin Muhammad, the greatest of the Mughal, was born at Amarkot. And when Humayun died, he was 14 years old, and he was given the title of Akbar. Fortunately, Akbar, though he was very small during that time, so guardianship was given to one of the faithful and experienced general, Behram Khan, very important person. Later, Akbar had to fight many battles in order to consolidate his position. The Mughal throne was unstable and insecure, and the Rajputs, they have become very powerful during that time, and they were waiting that how they can throw the Mughals from India. So Mughal congests, we can start. Akbar congests, that is the second battle of Panipat, which was fought in the years 1556. The major threat it came from the Hindu named Hemu, who had risen in the service of the ruling Afghans and also became the chief minister of Adil Shah. So in 1556, he led a great force into Delhi, and the city of Delhi fell into the hands of the Hemu. So Akbar, under the guidelines of the Verab Khan, marched towards against Hemu's superior forces. The two armies of Akbar and Hemu, you can underline, met on the historical battlefield of Panipat in 1556, and in which Hemu was defeated by Akbar and he was killed. So this battle of Panipat is very one of the most important battle of history, and it destroyed the Afghan powers and thus consolidated the Mughal Empire. And then Akbar dismissed Behram Khan and took over the reign of power. Later, when he was able to look after the kingdom, so he took the kingdom in his hand. Now, next it is Akbar congests in the north. Akbar made many congests after his victory at Panipat. So in CE 1561, Akbar sent a huge force under Adam Khan to conquer Malwa. Then he some forces was led by Asfaq Khan. He attacked and later on annexed Gar, and then you can say that the great god of Ratnagar, Rani Durgabati, fought very bravely but was defeated. Then Akbar captured Chittor also. The Rana of Mewar has refused to submit to Akbar. Then he marched to Chittor and captured it. Then he conquered Kalinjangar, then Ranthambore, Gujarat, etc. Then Nana Pratap continued the struggle against the Mughals after his father died. He defeated in the battle of Haldighati, you can underline. Then Akbar sent his army to fight against Daud Khan, the Sultan of Bengal. Then he conquered Kabul, Kashmir, Sindh, Bulistan, etc. And he also annexed Orissa. These were some of the congests in the north, and then the another congest which took place, they were in the south, and Mughal forces remained busy in the Deccan. Ahmednagar was taken from the Chandbai. She was killed in her by her own army. Then they captured Siargad, a very strong fort. Then Akbar annexed three provinces in the Deccan, that is Berar, Ahmednagar, and Kandesh. So these were some of his major congests which took place in north and south. Now next it is the important one, Akbar's administration. He divided his empire into 15 subas or provinces, you can say, as follows. Kabul was there, Multan, Agra, Allahabad, Bihar, Ahmedabad, Berar, Ahmednagar, Lahore, Delhi, Ajmer, Awadh, Bengal, Malwa, Kandesh. So he was a great administrator. He followed and improved upon the policies of Sher Shah, which we have already read in the previous chapter. He was the first Mughal ruler to look after the welfare of the people irrespective of their religious beliefs. Means he was taking care of each and every person of his kingdom without keeping in mind that of which religion they belong. So the administration of Akbar was divided into two parts, that is central administration and provincial administration. Now, under central administration, the administration was headed by the emperor, who was having absolute power. His power was absolute, but Akbar was the main. He will remain the main person. He had a council of ministers and officers to assist him. The ministers were heads of different departments. He recruited Hindus and Muslims to public offices. His council of ministers comprises the Wazir or Diwan, who was the head of the revenue department. Then military department was in the hand of Mir Bakshi. Then Chief Qazi was there. Then Chief Sadar was there. Then Mir Saman was in charge of imperial household. Then Vakils was there. Then Diwane Khas, important meetings they were made in the Diwane Khas. Then provincial administration, it was divided into 15 provinces, subas, which was subdivided into sarkars and then into parganas. Each parganas comprises the number of villages. Each province was under the charge of subedar, who had full civil and military power. Subedar was assisted by number of officials like Diwan, Bakshi, Qazi, Kotwal, and many other officers. Then Parganas, they were in the hand of Faujdars. So the village was under the charge of Mukaldam, a Patwari, Chowkidar, etc. So these was the Akbar administration, which was divided into two parts: central administration and provincial administration. Clear? You can go through this green box for your knowledge. These were the name of some of the Navratans, 9 gems, which was with the Akbar. So Abul Fazl was there, Faziz was there, Rahim Khan was there, Tansin was there, Todarmal was there, Birbal was there, Raja Man Singh was there, then Fazik Joyuddin was there, Mulanodo Pizza was there. So these were some of the 9 jewels which was working in the Akbar's court. Now next it is a revenue system. Sher Shah's system of land revenue was adopted by Akbar with a few necessary changes. Akbar tried to improve the collection of revenue. The land was measured and it was measured on the basis of quality of land and quantity of production. The revenue which was collected in cash or in kind was predetermined by revenue officers. Loans were given to farmers in time of need. Many projects was undertaken in order to improve agriculture. Then Raja Todarmal, the main important revenue minister, was there, who was making the various rules and various other revenue systems. Then according to the Todarmal, Bandobast, land was surveyed and categorized into 4 types according to how, depending on whether it was regularly or occasionally cultivated. Then it was classified as a good, middle, or bad. All land was measured with bamboos joined together with the iron rings called jarab. The revenue was calculated on the basis of average produce, and the land revenue was fixed at 1/3 of the average produce. Revenue could be paid either in cash or in a kind if there was a natural calamities like floods or drought. So remission of revenue will be there, and loans will be given to the farmers to buy the seeds, kettles, and another implements. Trade was also brought in revenue. Both internal and foreign trade was encouraged. So this was the revenue system where the land was divided into four different categories depending upon their regularity or occasionally whether they are cultivated or not, on the basis of good also, middle also, and bad also. Next it is your Mansabdari system. The Mughal administration was a military administration and introduced a new type of system which was known as a Mansabdari system. So this Mansabdari system was on the basis of the civil and military administration. Like the word Mansab means rank or status. Jat and Swar were the two ranks of a Mansabdar. Please underline. The word Jat means personal. It fixed the personal status of the person. The Swar rank indicated the number of cavalrymen a person who was required to maintain. The number of soldiers varied from 10 to 7,000. It depends on the nature and importance of the job. The highest rank or mansabs was reserved for the royal families, and these officers were paid in the form of jagirs. Underline. Salaries were paid to the mansabdar according to their ranks in the form of jagirs. The mansabdars was appointed, dismissed, or promoted by the emperor. So Akbar also introduced a system of branding horses, underline, and maintaining the descriptive role of the soldiers. So this system was a great efficient system, and it worked a lot, whereas Mansabdari system collapsed after the death of the Aurangzeb. Now, few Akbar's religious policies. He was having a very liberal religious policies, and he abolished the jizya tax, pilgrim tax. Then he was the emperor who not only let Hindus build their temple but also grant them money to build them. Then forcible conversion to Islam was stopped. He got religious books of Hindus translated into Persian language. Then Akbar was a secular ruler who participated in festivals like Diwali, Holi, etc. So he was quite influenced by the liberal ideas of the Sufi saints. He wanted the support of the Hindus to strengthen the foundation of his empire. So he built a Ibadat Khana also at Fatehpur Sikri, and in this he used to have religious debates and discussions by Hindu, Muslim, Parsi, Jains, and Christians, etc. And later he started a new faith, Deen-e-Ilahi, which was a way of life. And the main feature of this religion was the belief in one God. So Deen-e-Ilahi, in the basic principles, was he declared himself the spiritual guide of his people. He preached peace and tolerance, then put the idea of sulhaful, or that is universal peace, you can say. He disapproved the system of sati and discouraged the killing of animals for meat. And then Deen-e-Ilahi was merely a code of conduct. Akbar never forced anyone to follow it. So this was the Deen-e-Ilahi. And then his aim was to unite the people of his empire and achieve unity in a land of diversity. Then there was few followers of Deen-e-Ilahi, as Akbar never forces anyone to follow that.